back to the beginning. So I'm going to talk about the EuroHPC Federation Platform. Specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Federated Software Catalog. And I've spoken at this event previously about something called the European Environment for Scientific Software Installations, or EESSI. That's part of the Federation Platform, or it underpins a certain aspect of the Federation Platform. So I'll come back to that a little bit at the end. At the bottom of this slide is the URL for my EuroHPC, and we're going to go there and explore that in a minute, right? That's one of the first things that we're going to do, because I want to tease you a little bit about what it is before I show you how it's done. First off, what is the EuroHPC Federation Platform? So there are all these resources across Europe, and we want to orchestrate them together at the same time. It's intended to be a one-stop shop for accessing and utilizing all these different systems that are all in different countries, and all the services that they have as well. It's a platform and a federation framework. The idea is to provide a single streamlined point of onboarding. So when you get a project, you go to a single location regardless of where ultimately those project resources are going to be for you, whichever system you have access to. And the user can access all of the different systems. So if they have a project that has multiple systems, they still have a single point of access to get access to those resources across the EuroHPC ecosystem. It is direct access. You can get SSH certificates, so you can directly log on to resources. It has interactive interfaces, and we'll take a more extended look into those. It has programmatic APIs that you can use. And it has a unified software stack, so we'll also come back to that as well. So what are the target systems? What are these EuroHPC resources? So right now, this picture has 9 systems across Europe that are the ones that are in production today. And actually, there's another one called harmonize in Denmark that's actually in production since a couple of weeks ago as well, and has its first few projects as of last week. So there's 9 systems there currently. There are more. The first 4 in this, the first 3 in this list. Alice Racock is another exascale machine in France. Harmonize is in Denmark, and Daedalus is in Greece. And those are all coming online soon. But it's not just HPC resources, it's also all the AI factories as well. So all of the AI factories, there's a lot of those coming online in the next year or two as well. And then on top of that, then we also have the quantum systems as well, right? So these are all fall under the umbrella of EuroHPC, of the joint undertaking, right? The EuroHPC Joint Undertaking. And so before I get more into slides, I thought I'd actually show you what it is and how does it work, right? So this is that link that was on the first slide. This is what it actually looks like. Maybe I'll increase the size just a little bit. So this is the login page. So we can log into that system then. We can log into the portal. It uses my access ID for authentication, right? So it'll go back and say, who do you want to authenticate with? I want to authenticate with Ghent University. That's where I have my email address. And then it's a multi-factor authentication. So I need to get my authentication code. Hopefully nobody in the room has used it already. And it probably failed because it just changed. No, I caught it on time. Right, so now we're logged in, and we can see that I have projects, right? So I have one project, and then I have this other one here is about direct access. So this is how to get SSH access to the machines. We have, so there's a little bit here about how to do that. You can just click on this link to get a certificate, which you can use then to log in the system, and it walks you through how to do that. There's a software catalog as well. So the software catalog is based on top of EESSI. And you can explore that catalog, so you can search for software. So if you're interested in something like GROMACS, you can search for that. You can search in the various iterations of EESSI as well. There's 2 different versions, 2023-06 and 2025-06. So you can look for various different versions of GROMACS, for example. And then you can see what systems actually support that software. So where is it available, this thing? It also details a little bit about the GPU targets and everything that are available there as well. So you can also filter based on what you actually require. There's also workflows as well. So workflows is the one that's most recent. It's still coming online, workflows, so it's available on a couple of the systems. And I'll come back to it a little bit to explain what workflows is capable of. But then there's also interactive as well. So I wanted to show you in a little bit more detail what interactive looks like, because it allows us to navigate these systems really quickly. Right, so we can click on the link for interactive and the interface. So what's happening here now is interactive is spinning up a little VM for me in a Kubernetes cluster that I'm going to connect to. And we have a federated open on demand, basically. So we have an open on demand instance, but it's not connected to a single resource is connected to multiple resources at the same time. Right, so now I can, from all of these things here, I can do various things. I can connect to Deucalion, which is a system in Portugal that has A64FX processors. I can connect to Discoverer in Bulgaria, Vega, that's in Slovenia, Carolina is in the Czech Republic, and then Lumi in Finland. And then I could also, on any of these resources, I could start a Jupyter environment, I can start RStudio, I can start MLflow, and we will add more applications here as well in the future, right? But in general, the idea is that it works, right? So I can just do a one-click on Deucalion and wait a second, and it will automatically connect. It's a bit small for you guys, right? But you can see basically that I have a login shell here, right? So I'm now on the Deucalion system, right? And I can interact with this terminal the way I normally do. Anyone who has experienced EuroHPC resources will know that the mechanism to actually access the resources varies from site to site. Right? And this can be quite complicated sometimes. So for example, to access Discoverer, you have to use their VPN, right? So you have to use a VPN to access them. So it's a multi-step process, and then every time you go there, you have to remember, oh yeah, this system is different. I need to run this program first to start a VPN, and it really depends, right? They all have different approaches. This is a unified way of doing it, right? So you can also use the certificate thing, so you don't have to go through interactive. You can go another way, but it's very easy to access this through interactive. So the Zoom controls are in my way. How do I hide them again? Control Shift Alt and H, yes. So basically I could do that. I can be on Deucalion. I can go to Discover is the one that requires a VPN, but not through EFP. Right? So if I go through here, I don't need to do that step, right? And I'm just straight onto that resource. So I can access all those resources at the same time. Through interactive, I can also do that myself. If I use the APIs, I can do that through my own programs and stuff. But it uses the authentication mechanisms that we're getting from somewhere else. So and I explain a little bit more about that. And so if I want to, I don't want to take up too much time, especially because we had that little delay at the beginning, but I could have showed you that I can click. Well, let's go through the process a little bit to talk about, say, something like RStudio. I could have that on Lumi, or Deucalion, Discover, Carolina, all those resources that I have access to. I could pick Deucalion. I could say I want to run on the ARM partition of Deucalion. I can select the modules that I want to load. In this case, it's already pre-selected RStudio server because that's what I want to run here. And then I can go ahead and launch that. Now, a lot of you have probably seen something similar to that already through Open On Demand. And I'm not an Open On Demand expert, but you get the idea that I'm not connected to a single resource here. I can select between all of the different resources that I might have access to and still use the same environments and everything. So I can have this RStudio, I can have Jupyter, I can have a desktop on all of these resources as well. So maybe with that, I go back to the presentation mode. So this is the target systems. So what will I cover actually in the presentation here? I just wanted to, well, first I wanted to show you what it actually looks like to use this, but then I also want to talk about how does it work, right? So to introduce you to the platform and the components that make it up. We'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's called the Federated Software Catalog, but right now that's really just EESSI. There's nothing additional there beyond what EESSI already provides. We'll look at the user experience of that. We'll talk about the current status of available software, of what CPUs and GPUs we support, and maybe discuss a little bit about the ongoing work and the availability of this catalog on the EuroHPC resources. I was going to do a live demo with PowerView. Maybe I'll come back and do that in a minute at the end if I have time, but it takes a little bit too much to do it right now. And then we can talk about how do you get help. So what are the main features? The main features are sixfold, right? So the first one is that perhaps piqued a little bit of people's interest is how do we do federated identity, right? So how do we have the same identity across all these resources? How do we do the single sign-on? So that's one of the things. The other one is resource allocation, right? So EuroHPC has a call for proposals. You respond to that call, and if the reviewers like your proposal, hopefully you get an allocation. And then the question is, what happens at the next step, right? So what happens with the resource allocation? So one of the things that EFP does, it will help you, it will do the allocation and will help you manage and monitor that allocation across the systems. Then we have this interactive web-based usage that we saw. We have this Federated Software Catalog, which allows us to know that we have the same software on all of these different systems. And then we have advanced workflows and data transfer. So data transfer is part of the workflows as well. And we have this mechanism to allow you to have direct access using SSH certificates as well. So we've had a collaboration with all the sites to allow them to work together, to collaborate together, so that they will accept these SSH certificates that are prepared by our authentication mechanism. What are the technologies behind EFP? So these are the components that make it up. So the authentication infrastructure is my access ID. Allocations is done via Walder. Interactive is based on Open On Demand. The workflows is based on something called Lexis. Reporting really just means collecting information about usage and everything on the system, but communicating that back to the platform. That's done through something called Shiny. There's a help desk as well, so we have help desk as well that's based on Xamad. And then the software listing or the software catalog is based on EESSI. So that makes up the platform, and then you have connected to that. Then you have the hosting entities. They might be HPC, they might be AI, they might be quantum. But the idea is that all those components, they all work on all those different systems. These are all open source projects, right? So the response to the tender that EuroHPC had was our response was all based around open source projects, right? So everything that we do is open source, and the idea is that when we make developments, the idea is that they would ultimately make it back to these open source projects as well. What does that mean for the user journey when you're using EuroHPC resources? So before EFP, you applied for a project in the EuroHPC review portal. If that got accepted, then you now have to deal directly with each individual site that you want to access. That's part of your proposal. And they were manually transferred to each system. And when those sites would get back to you about when they are ready to create your project and your accounts and everything, that varied between sites, right? They had a time window to do it, but they didn't all do it at the same time, right? So you might be dealing with this process for weeks across the different sites. Then the user is invited to complete a separate registration process at each resource. Then they have to use a separate portal and separate credentials to access the projects and to manage those projects, right? To invite new people and everything. All of the sites had different approaches to how this was done. With EuroHPC, the first step is the same. You still have to apply for the resources, right? But if you're successful, then the information flows directly to EFP, and it's EFP that does that provisions the resources. And they will talk with each EuroHPC system through API calls and everything to automate this process. So a user then is invited to join a project, and they register through the EFP, right? So they don't go to the sites themselves, they come to EFP, they register as a user with EFP, and then things flow through EFP. So the users manage the access to the projects, they manage the projects themselves, they can invite new people all through the EFP platform. This doesn't change what the sites themselves already offer, right? It doesn't change the services that the sites had already, and it doesn't change their capabilities. It just gives a unified way for people to access those resources. Onboarding and managing projects across all available systems is just meant to be easier, right? The idea was to try and reduce the overhead for people of getting access, actually getting the access that they need to those resources. So you saw it already. This is basically what the page looks like. It gives you like the locations of the resources that you have access to. There's some information there about what's happening with your project events. You have all the links on the left-hand side about the various components that you as a user would interact with. They're all on the left-hand side. And then you have things like maintenance announcements as well, right? So you can see which resources are down for whatever reason today. So that kind of information is centrally communicated as well. So going through them component by component, so the first one is the authentication infrastructure. So that's based on MyAccess ID. So EFP is using the MyAccess ID for identity federation. That's an AAI proxy and discovery service, an account registry. So what does that mean? In reality, it means that you go to, you press the login button, it takes you to a place and say, oh, the proxy says, who do you want to authenticate against? So you decide that. You say, well, my institution is whatever your institution is. Like for me, it's the University of Ghent. And then they actually do the authentication through the University of Ghent first. That registers me in MyAccess ID, and then I can mix an account registration there. And then I have to add, the next part is identity vetting, right? So they care about who you are, right? It's not just that you can authenticate, but your identity has to be vetted as well. Today, that means passport-based authentication, right? So what happens is there's an app that you can get on your phone that can read the NFC chip in your passport, and that verifies your identity, and that verification is communicated to MyAccess ID. We are working on ways to make this a little bit easier, but this is a policy decision, right? So exactly what the vetting means is a policy decision. It's not up to EFP, it's up to EuroHPC and what they require. So today that's passport-based, but we're hoping that in the future we can be a little bit more relaxed and accept other forms, right? So unfortunately, the easiest would be national identity cards, but national identity cards are hard because you're not legally allowed to take information from somebody's national identity card unless you have a very specific reason to do that. So we're looking at ways to try and improve this, but today it's based on passport-based authentication. That's done via an app. We also have support for users that don't have an institutional login, right? So people from industry or from an SME or a startup or something like that, they may not have access to an institutional email address that's registered with MyAccess ID, and so instead we have a guest IDP that they can sign up to do that. So it's still possible for them to gain access to this resource. For the direct access, it's MyAccess ID that creates the short-lived certificates that are accepted by the resources. So basically, you have your normal SSH key, you communicate that SSH key to MyAccess ID, and it creates a certificate based on the key that you've added, right? So it authenticates you and then creates a certificate. You can use that combination of key plus certificate then to access the resources. And the lifetime of those certificates is, as of yesterday, is 8 hours, right? So you can use that certificate for 8 hours, but you do have to renew it essentially every day, every work day, right? You will have to renew your certificate. And this identity federation can, of course, be utilized independently of the platform as well. On the allocation side, so the tool that's being used is Waldor, becoming quite popular these days. So it provides these project-centric dashboards, so a way to look around your project and your resources and the people who are involved and everything. And also to sign things like terms of service, right? So to access a resource, you also need to say, yeah, I agree with the terms that they offer when I gain access to this resource. All of that type of thing, all of the metadata around those resources as well, that's all done in Waldor. So yeah, it serves metadata about the systems, it knows about the partitions, it knows about things like the login node, like how do you get access to the resource, your username on the system, all of this type of information is available in Waldor. And then it also is the endpoint for where it collects and serves information about the maintenance breaks of the systems as well. And I didn't actually show it directly myself, but that's kind of what it looks like for the various different projects. You have locations that you can click, you can explore those resources, you can see your usage, you can add new users, you can manage your users, yeah. On the workflow side of things, we have, the idea is that you want to have easy access to visually managed workflows and distributed data management. So you want to be able to orchestrate something between all of the resources that you have access to. That usually includes moving data around as well, right? So you need to be able to move data around as well. There's a visual way to do this, but there's also API usage that you can use from various languages like Python and R. It also has, coming soon, I should say, is our smart scheduling policies based on metrics that are coming from the HPC sites. I don't know what those metrics are yet, but the idea is that you should be able to make decisions about scheduling based on information that's coming from sites, right? So we still have to talk about what that information is, but the capabilities are in the tool to allow for this. The goal is to have multi-system workflows, which might include, like as I said before, right, it may include quantum and AI systems as well. Some of those AI systems might be based on Kubernetes, right, not like a Slurm cluster, but all of these resources should be supported by the workflows tool. One important thing is, of course, this idea of data staging, right? So being able to move around data or stage data in for your workflow from external resources. So that's a key part of the platform too. Interactive was the one that we looked at a little bit deeper. So interactive is based on open on demand. So probably that interface to a lot of you is already quite familiar. And the difference is that it's federated, right? So that you have a central point of access for all of these different resources. So it's an easy to use web interface for both new people and more advanced users. It really depends on what you want to do at any one time. If I want to look at the jobs that are in the queue, interactive is very convenient for me, right? Because I can just do a single logon, I can move around to all the different systems. So if I want to do something quick and easy, that's very, very useful for me. But then if you want to do something more involved, maybe you need the SSH, the CA, the certificates then to do something directly yourself. It has interactive applications, so that we saw like the Jupyter Notebook or Studio remote desktops, and you can get shell environments on the login nodes and on the compute nodes as well. On the compute nodes, they're tmux environments, so they're persistent for as long as your job lasts. And it also supports job management and file management on the resources. So in the case of the file management, that's local to a specific resources, and you can manage the files on a specific system, but you can't move files between different systems, right? That's not supported. If you want to move files between systems, then you would go to workflows. The help desk is based on Xamad, and the most important thing in this slide is that email address. So that's actually the people you can the address that you can contact to get help if you have access to resources. For the timeline of nearly up in time. For the timeline, the first phase was, the first release was only a couple of months ago, April 15th. That was our core functionality, our core integration with the currently online systems, so those 9 systems that were already available at that time. We want to do more in 2026, so we want to deploy, we're continuously improving things. We have integration with new EuroHPC systems like Harmonize, authorization for the web API, smart scheduler, and we're also looking into connecting to other federations, so things like EESSI as well, and then quality and usability, trying to improve the usability of things as well. And there's a second phase as well where we are focused more on things like the AI and quantum systems. That's coming in 2027. I only have a couple of minutes, so I guess I won't have a lot of time to talk about this, but in terms of the Federated Software Catalog, the idea is that this is a uniform software stack that's available on all the systems, right? So I can rely on the fact that this software stack is available across all the systems. So it's applications, it's tools, it's libraries, it's not system software, right? It's this user space software. One of the things that this gives you is an identical workflow across systems, and that's used, right, by Interactive itself, right? So Interactive for our Studio, for MLflow, for all these things, it's relying on the fact that it can use the Federated Software Catalog. It's available on all the EuroHPC systems. It's intended to be easy to navigate, to search, to use, and it's integrated with the other components, right? So we saw that we can search there, we saw that we can use it in Interactive, you can use it for your workflows as well. What does it mean in the end is that you create applications, you put them inside EESSI, and they automatically become available right across all these different systems. The current status of our GPU support. Yes, we have support for NVIDIA GPUs. We also have initial support for AMD GPUs as well. So we have ROCm LLVM is available in there if you know where to look. But it's still in the kind of a testing phase for us. And we do have support all the way up to Blackwell as well in EESSI 2025-06. So running CUDA software included in EESSI should work out of the box as long as you run a little script that we have that tells EESSI where your GPU drivers are. You can also build CUDA software but you need another trick for that. And then EESSI is also working very hard currently on the AMD GPU support. It's integrated into the other parts of the platform as well. So as I mentioned, the software listing, open on demand, and then you can use it in your Slurm jobs, you can use it in your workflows. Our focus currently is on the latest version of EESSI, which is 2025-06, but everything is available there. So you can also use the older stuff that's available in EESSI as well. It's already available today on all of the systems in a variety of different ways, right? So some sites provide it natively, some sites export it and it's provided by a GPFS, some sites export the whole thing and provide it by a SquashFS. There's multiple different ways you can do it. It will be on Jupyter when Jupyter goes into production, and it also will be available on all the future systems as well. How to get access depends a little bit on the site policies of the system, but your experience should be the same. Once EESSI is there, your experience of using EESSI will be the same across all the systems. I don't think I have time to go through this, but there is a workflow for adding software. We care about performance because I want to give time for questions, and then you can get help with the software catalog as well. And with that, we had webinars for all of the user-facing components of EFP, and we had webinars for those. All those recordings are available, so if anyone's interested, they can go have a look. Thank you.